Like for instance, these loudspeakers who have been like, you know, use the components or do whatever.
My card is going to be totally destroyed.
Yeah, your card is another. You can't.
I like the idea of the obsolete, like, and also the object that disappears. That's also nice. When it's like this, disappears into nothing. No trace.
Ah, that's nice, but it's difficult to succeed in such.
But no garbage either.
Yeah, no garbage. But what can we do with the
toxic waste
with the liquid?
Toxic waste, but it will evaporate probably.
Yeah, of course. It's in your head after.
Yeah. What about the environment though? That's a different side.
That's bad, I think. Well, it's not a good service for the environment.
Yeah.
This is why I'm French. It's awful, France. No, it's bad. Most of the time it's bad. But sometimes for example, the last activation 2 months ago in the FRAC, Fonds Régional d'Art Contemporain, it was not possible to bury things it was not possible. So we get in touch with I don't know, the big trash institution of the city, and then we deal something to give all, and then they will make categories, etc. So, for example, because it was a very big quantities. So that was problematic.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if it's a question, but maybe it's more of a suggestion, but I was thinking about like one day you might to like complete this concept or this idea of the whole service, destroy all the photos of
of
all
course.
the documentation of the process and the results, the end results and stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Because,
The images are.
Because it still exists in a way. It's not destroyed.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the fact is that I work with words in general, art wording, or what I was calling instruction for use, and it's language. My medium is language, and I use the photos in the frame of lectures, presentation, workshops, things like that.
Yeah.
But in general, it's very rare that I use it as a document. So I don't like so much that document. But in fact, it exists like that. And I agree with you, because for people, seeing images of activations before doing something, activating a service, is pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
Because they see images and they want to do the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like if you read the text, destruction object, okay, you come with no problem. If you see images before the frame is too heavy, it's a problem. It's problematical. It's like sweary. Maybe it has to be pure process without documentation.
So your whole workshop on destroying material.
No.
And what about that memory destruction? Like, is there any way to wipe out the memory or evaporate the memory?
Maybe we do another workshop. We destroy the memory of this one.
The memory of the object is not the object anymore, right?
Memory is not object, yeah.
It's not even...
So it's a destroying object.
I think documentation of the process is more close to the object than the memory of the object. I mean, in a physical way.
But what if you come with an object as like, I mean, the object is something that you do something on, no? So it's like you can come with a word to destroy.
You can come with?
Like with a word, I want to destroy this word.
Yeah, of course. But of course, it's absolutely open. Someone can come and say, I want to destroy the world.
Yeah, and how
so that's the point. I think it's very interesting. A verb.
Word, yeah. Destroy a word.
But you had some kind of projects like that. when, for instance, these meetings, or it's not exactly words, but it was more about discussions and meeting and deleting things of our lives or actions, words, things like that. So
yeah, of course. I present this one here because this one is about objects, and I think it has an important role to play in art schools, because we deal all the time with objects, art objects. So this is why I present this one. But in general, most of the time, I work with language or time. Time, I mean speed. For example, slowing, accelerating, or upgrading things. Let's talk about value, and then you upgrade the value of something. And it's not object time. It's totally something else. But in that frame, in that workshop, the idea was to activate something around the object. But it's an old one. It's 10 years ago. And the evolution is...
But when we speak about this, like what you spoke about, like art in everyday life, no? And object art from institutions, like, changing the rule or destroying it in some kind of way, no? Aren't we, like, by documenting this everyday life art or presenting it within institutions as art schools or museums, or just presenting, like, invitation, like in a newspaper article to, like, destroy objects as part of art, no? Isn't it, like, putting it in a frame of institution again?
Yeah, of course.
And
but,
kind of denying
yes,
itself?
but at the same time, when you say to an institution or something like that, or a school, let's forget exhibition, it's very problematical. And I think even if we speak about it with a slideshow, a projection, images, etc., it's really different to do something instead of exhibiting something, you know. It's really different. And it's not, in France, en tout cas, in France, it's not well accepted. No, exhibition is still the center of everything. Showing things somewhere, etc.
Or having a performance.
Having a performance, but I'm not in performance because most of the activation of services happens at home without documentation. Through the book, people buy the book and then you can do 80 services.
Yes, but...
you don't have to speak about it if you don't want to. But here, of course, it's an institutional frame. Of course.
And also apropos what you said about this guy Metzger, auto-destructive art. No, but I feel like there have been so much more about this auto-destruction of art before, like maybe beginning with futurism, dadaism, I mean situationist international, like this thing about abolishing.
Well, after. After.
Was it really?
Yeah. Metzger, it's 59. And situationist, 60, it's 58. You're right. Same moment.
I think it's before. It's like when
Mannequin
and like Society of Spectacle. It's like
no. It's 68.
68.
68.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. 68. Okay.
Yeah,
it's about same.
You speak about French people. No,
of course, yeah.
We know. No.
But it just happened so many. I don't know.
No, not so obviously. Metzger is very different because he tries to put distraction in the artwork itself.
Yes.
Like as if the distraction was the center of the art itself. And this was not made, I think. Futurist, but it's still exhibition, painting. It's very interesting. They are very destructive. It's a tabula rasa. Exactly.
But what about dadaism? Like dadaism was all about destruction.
Yes, but they don't write, we trust in destruction, that destruction will be the future of art. That's the difference. Metzger takes the destruction fact as a gesture in art. different, new kind of gesture in art. So it's really new, I think. And even Guy Debord, Van Eghem, situationism, lettrism, etc., they are really destructive with la dérive, the drift, when they drink, etc. It's really destructive, but it's not so obvious, it's not so clear. The idea to use destruction as a power in the art, in the art process.
But what the board says about Dadaism and Surrealism is that Dadaism has only tried to destroy art, while Surrealism has tried to create it without destroying it, and they believe that you should both destroy while creating it and create by destroying it. It's about this.
That's nice.
So,
I don't know.
But
at the same
then
time,
it also loses itself so much into everyday life that in the end, you don't know about it as art. Many stuff that they have done later.
Yeah, but the problem with situationists, you don't have results. You have filmed, books, and that's all.
But the result is the situation that occurs in time, no? When
I think it's too optimistic. This way of thinking. I think they were so theoretically radical that nothing was possible to do, because each thing we wanted to do, it was broke immediately because it wasn't enough. So we know the same in the Biennale de Paris. I was evoking. We want to. It's so much. We try to be really radical, but nothing emerges. It's it's like in situations.
Yes, but also, for example, this workshop that we have done today, the whole thing, what is art about this, I feel is what is going on then and there, among people, the situations that occur and challenges that occur with objects being destroyed. Well, I feel when you document it and show it within this context, it loses for me this meaning of art as everyday life.
Yeah, of course. You're right.
So it's very hard.
I think it's hard to play if you present yourself as an artist. I do that because I do some lectures, etc. So, but maybe we could speak about it without images. It has to go that way, without anything. Maybe reading and speaking.
Yeah. I don't know.
Excuse me, just the last sentence, but I think that what is interesting by showing images like that is that it's like proof. You can prove that it exists, because most of the time when people see my books, they say, "Oh no, it's crazy, it's impossible." And I like photos in that way. It's like a way to prove that it can be. That kind of approach can exist.
But does it need a proof?
Yeah, I think so. To be, I don't know how to say it, effective in a way. No, it's not that. It's like, I don't want it to be a dream or a fantasy or something. I want it to be very effective. You know? This is why I use logotypes and things like that. I like things that exist really, not like in situationists, just like visions or...
But they do exist?
No.
Only a couple of people see them, not everyone?
No, they didn't do anything. Only films, but very nice. Very, very nice. But the rest was silly things, like tools. You
can show the tools, the mark on the tools.
You can make an exhibition with the tools. But you wanted to, excuse me?
Yeah, I just wonder if art students is a good target group for you, or you should be working with corporations or...
Yeah, of course, I did.
Oh yeah? And how is that?
Yeah, sometimes it happens in professional frames.
And how is that? In difference to art?
Ouais, the difficult thing is that comment on dit, entreprise films like that, they are very afraid, you know, with everything. Destroying something, it's not possible because I don't know, doing that, cancelling spaces, knowing the place where we work, it's not possible because they always have arguments to avoid the realizations. So it's very complicated because actually in work there is a lot of suffering because the actual situation of the society is very bad, so you can't make jokes in fears. It's difficult, it's like cynical, you know? So we have to speak for hours, how to do something, why, etc. And sometimes it begins to be maybe too much reflections around it, not enough action.
But do you think it's any point of exercising these things with a crowd which is already very receptive to those ideas?
You mean, are they receptible to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine our students are very willing to work with you and your ideas, but is there any point then? Like, what is...
Yeah, of course. Most of people activating the services are not linked to the art world. There are people I meet, maybe they do it because they know that there is a link with art. That I don't know. But most of the time, maybe photographies I've shown, cancellation of spaces, it was not linked to art. It was people, they called me, I went to their home, we did the thing, I don't know, things like that. Or professional friends. And it's more valuable, I think, when it happens in such context.
I can imagine for you. Yeah. I'm just thinking about, I mean, the effect of what you're doing, because you're giving quite a strong political statement on like a background for your work, but the people who perform or engages in your performances seems like they're not the people you should be talking to.
But I think it's also interesting to have this in the school. I think it's to have it in institutions is also changing the institutions. And I mean, if you look at most schools, it's very traditional art. And I don't think that students are always that keen to do that kind of things. I think for some people, sometimes it's very new. Some, of course, I mean, people are participating and in some more maybe open to that kind of practices, but others think that it's not practice or it's just nothing, it doesn't exist, or you know. I think to still have to propose this service in an institution such an art school or museum or an exhibition space or anything, I think it's interesting because it's changing the institution from inside. And that's also like, yeah, I think it's that's like a little.
I don't know. I think it would be similar to comparing it to relational aesthetics for artists. I'm cooking for other artists, and we're not having any objects, and it ends up being an institutional critique, which institutions love to be talked about and to be in the center of attention. So I think it's.
You mean if the institution is using it as.
Of course, they're commissioning your work, and they love to have this critique in their.
Depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I think it's not that easy and.
I don't know. I think it ends up making art.
Yeah, that's.
So.
Within institution.
I think it's a nice project. I just have some trouble with the whole political sort of ambition. I don't see the point of it. Actually, I see the point of the moments and the actions and the destructions and the personal encounters and the experiences and the memories, but not the political side of it.
I think that's the problem you get with all art. I mean, anytime you have something that is political or really radical, there's always going to be a point where the institution says, okay, if we can't ignore you, we have to bring you in. We have to soften it down. But at the same time, it's good and bad for the artist. It's good because you have so many people who see your work, and it's bad because maybe you have to make some sacrifices. But ultimately, you are, even though you're in the institution, you have the ability to change something. And I think it's really important that you come here and say, yes, you can destroy objects. No, you don't need it anymore. This is art. Like, the art is the act of destroying. It's very interesting. I think that, like, just showing that it can be done is very, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, you're in this vicious circle. It's like the snakes eating each other. This is like what being an artist is. And it's something that's going to bother you about, like, everything. It bothers me every day. And I end up not making anything. And, you know, it's kind of like art.
Did the Fonds Régional bought your service? Or
yeah, thanks to Stefan, right? Because it was complicated to do that, but he was defending the work and they bought it. And but I can do what I want. It's I participate when I am sure that I can do the things the way I want.
Don't you find it a bit strange that something like service, which is very material, can be bought?
No, I think it's quite normal. Because you can see the same thing in society. I make a contract, and in the contract it is stipulated that the person who possesses the service has to let the service being activated by everyone who wants to do it freely. So you pay for something you have, but at the same time you accept that everybody can activate the service. It is yours, but it is not. So the person who pays is like, I don't know how to say it in English, it's like a help, for the development of the project. It's not a classical acquisition way of thinking. And most of the private collectors were very angry and against that idea to pay for something that is still appertaining to everybody. So sometimes institutions buy it. I think it's very interesting because in that they see the fact that it's a kind of public art or something like that everybody can activate. And if they want something from me that I don't want to give, we have contracts, so I say no, I don't want. If they ask me to expose some photos of the workshop, I say no. And it happened 10 times maybe. Or to, I don't know, make the only thing, any frame where I show images, it's in lectures because I think it's interesting. It's something like exchanging. It's like a support. Je crois pas que ce soit support. It's like support. Platform, something you can speak about because it's here. Okay, let's speak about what we see. I've told you that was that's all. All the rest, it's books and activations.
Another question.
Of course.
That destruction of the objects will lead people to buy new objects and increase the production even more?
No, I don't think so. Most of the time it's a mental process in which you think about what you've got. Most of the time.
It's often useless objects, like that we keep,
that
we don't really use. I mean, I think it has been the case for most examples.
So that means that it anyway doesn't decrease the production of products. So so it's kind of not.
Yeah, it could be. No, my wish would be that artists would work without producing art objects, because I think it's finished. It's clearly finished. It's not possible. It's finished. So we have to invent some new strategies to I don't know, to correct the reality, to infiltrate I don't know what, but without objects. And maybe that kind of work, existing since 10 years, is an example of such strategies. Working sometimes, sometimes not, political or not, I don't know.
You mentioned this work is 10 years old, and you emphasized that it could be different because there's been some someone was making examples from some different kind of movements in art. Then you also talked about the sacrifice element, about the objects like given in, I'm just curious if what do you think happened in those 10 years which changed this work now? Because if you do it now, I mean you have all this like articulation of immaterial labor. I don't think you spend less time doing or undoing objects. You know what I mean? There's a whole different positioning around the work today than it probably was 10 years ago. I don't know if you want to say something about that, what actually happened, or how you see this.
Yeah, what is, maybe it will not be an answer, but 10 years ago, when I was presenting that work, for people it was like, wow, it's totally silly, or I don't know. But the evolution of the society, with this all this sustainable, way of thinking, the production actually, today maybe it's too in phase with the society to be interesting, It was much more interesting 10 years ago than today, I think. Because today maybe it's finished, we have to do other things. Slowing down things without objects at all. Is it a kind of answer?
Yeah, I just was curious if you, because I think this 10 years ago it was maybe more radical, or maybe
especially in France,
40 years ago.
In France, 10 years ago, nobody heard about recycling or I don't know. That was like.
Yeah, I agree. Today it's kind of also like it poses different questions, and it's a bit like mainstream.
Yeah.
Within this kind of.
Also because we talked about you asked this question about this institution. Also because the institution is kind of absorb this idea of less production and blah, blah, blah. And now we have like advertising with like I don't know, you have like big firms or industries like polluting the whole world and having like green advertising and saying and blah blah, like natural gas and blah blah blah. And that is becoming like some kind of fashionable ideas. Because now it's selling, like if you say that this product is like from recycling.
It's marketing. Less is marketing.
And that's actually, I think that's the biggest problem in art, is that the market is like absorbing art the whole time and like making this kind of. It's crazy. It's very difficult to deal with, I think.
Yes, but on the plan of society, I think that the service is behind. But on the plan of art, I think that the service is quite new at this time, because in art we still work with art objects. It's not usual to find in France or in Europe.
But I mean,
I don't know the situation.
Talk about economy, for example. Like the service economy is well established, and far it's into a more experienced economy, where you don't take home an object and a service, take home an object and a memory and an experience of buying the product. In that sense, I was thinking about what you do as like the memories are actually really important. Like you provide provide an experience, and for the institutions who hire you, you get a ticket to an exhibition and you bring home a memory. You bring home an experience, a unique experience.